Hello, and welcome to the Single Family Programs Lender Training. I'm Whitney Weibel, a compliance underwriter.
My name's Derek Rose. I'm the Director of Communications here at ADFA.
And today we're going to go over all the programs that ADFA has to offer.
Everyone, this is Derek Rose. I'm Director of Outreach and Communications. I wanted to update you guys on the new website. So we have three options now. If you go to adfa.arkansas.gov, you'll see homeownership, development finance, and housing development. Homeownership will take you to the homeloans.arkansas.gov website, which is still available to our potential home buyers. Right there is where you will find out about ADFA programs. If you're a potential home buyer, you can get our current loan rates and you can find a lender. This has been made, I think, a bit easier. So all you have to do is put in the city that you're looking for. You can put in a radius of however many miles you want to search in that area. You can even use your current location to find a lender, and you can find one there. So that is the homeloans.arkansas.gov website. For you as a loan officer, you're going to go to the hamburger menu right here in the top left-hand corner. You're going to hit that. You'll see the drop-down menus. On the drop-down menu, homeownership, there are all our programs. You'll also sign up for program updates here or sign up for a daily rate sheet. But what's going to be important to you is our lender resources. You hit the lender resource page. That's where you're going to find our Midas portal, program guidelines. When they're updated, they will be found right there. You can get to your compliance forms for the Start Smart program. You can download all your exhibits right there. Also some flyers and marketing materials available. Again, you can also get your latest announcements by going here and signing up for program updates. You can get your daily rate sheet by signing up down here. So there's two places to get that information. Also, other lender training resources. This goes to our Go to Stage training channel where you will find videos to get yourself more familiar with our programs. Hope that's helpful, and I will now get you back to the training you're watching.
Okay, so this is our current look of programs. So we have our Move Up, which is a qualifying income first mortgage. So that's our traditional rate first mortgage. And the qualifying income has to be less than $142,000. This can be a standalone, so completely by itself, or you can pair it with our down payment assistance program. The DPA is a 10-year second mortgage loan. It's at the same interest rate as your first mortgage and allows home buyers up to $15,000 for down payment and closing cost expenses. We also have the Start Smart First Time Home Buyer Program. This is a below market rate mortgage for first time home buyers. That income is based off of the IRS and HUD guidelines, and we'll get into all of that. Again, this could be a standalone or it could be paired with that DPA program.
But those income limits, they will change depending on the county that you live in and the number of people in your household, which we'll go into after a while.
So let's start with Move Up. As I said, this is ADFA's traditional market rate first mortgage product. And the best part about it is that it can be paired with that DPA 10-year second mortgage. So let's start with who establishes the guidelines for Move Up. Well, as usual, we are with the industry guidelines. So whether you're doing FHA, rural development, conventional, you're focused on those guidelines first and foremost. Then you get into ADFA guidelines, and that's not only set by our agency overlays, but along with Service Solutions, our master servicer guidelines. And you can actually find out a lot from them by emailing questions at ahfa.com. So let's go over the Move Up product guidelines. So first and foremost, your borrower must qualify for that product for a loan in general. We need an AUS finding that's approve, accept, eligible. The loan risk cannot be refer, and there is no manual underwriting. There is not a first-time home buyer required for the move up program. It does, however, have to be their primary residence. This is a 30-year fixed mortgage for any of the products listed below. That qualifying income, as already stated, needs to be less than $142,000 annually. And there are co-borrowers and co-signers allowed for the move up program. Move up, again, is a qualifying income first mortgage. So we are relying on you and your underwriters to tell us what their income is and that it is in fact under that income limit. We need a median credit score of 640, a DTI of less than 45%. For the eligibility, again, there is not a first-time homebuyer requirement for move up. There is not a minimum Arkansas residency requirement. However, they must purchase their home in Arkansas. As far as property eligibility, it is single family detached, townhomes, condos. For duplexes, it is not allowed with VA or rural development, but it is allowed with FHA and conventional. Manufactured housing is not allowed with conventional. There are a couple fees that ADFA does allow with move up. So the 1.75% SRP, you can do up to a 1% origination fee. Extension fees, however, are not allowed with any of our programs. There is not a pre-closing review for move up. There is always, though, a closing review. And so you will actually fund these loans under your name as a lender. What are we looking for in that post-closing review? Well, there's a checklist that we have out on the lender portal for you to download. Then you know what documents to upload for ADFA to review. And as far as purchase price limits or overlays, just follow that first mortgage guideline. So if this is a less than 80 conventional, they do have income limits. So as already stated, that post-closing checklist that is available to be downloaded from the lender portal will have all of this for you. But let's go over it really quickly. For the move up, we need that post-closing checklist. We need the first mortgage signed and dated by borrower at closing. We need an AUS finding that is approve, eligible, or accept status with a DTI less than 45%. We need a final loan application signed and dated by borrower and lender at closing. We need a home buyer cert if it's a conventional and first-time home buyer loan. If it is a duplex property, we need that landlord certification for the conventional loan. That is not an ADFA guideline. This is specifically on conventional. And then we will also need that Freddie Mac Home Possible Income and Property Eligibility tool uploaded. Something else to note is that if your borrower has signed different than how their name is printed on that CD, we will be asking for a name affidavit. So a quick little recap for our move up qualifying income first mortgage. They have to be able to qualify for a mortgage. They have to have a DTI less than 45% and a credit score of 640 or higher. The only income limit that ADFA has is that it has to be less than $142,000 annually, and the purchase price limit is conforming to all of the products themselves. So let's hop into the Start Smart program. This is ADFA's first-time homebuyer program. Because ADFA is a state housing finance agency, the IRS allows us to issue tax-exempt mortgage revenue bonds. The savings generated from the tax exemption is passed along to home buyers who receive below market interest rate mortgage loans, and more importantly, lower monthly payments. As a little reminder, this can also be paired with ADFA's down payment assistance loan program. It's a second-year mortgage with a 10-year term, and it has the same interest rate as that first mortgage. So going over who establishes the guidelines again, as you guys can see, the first two are the same as move up. You have to comply with those industry guidelines. Then you look at ADFA and Survey Solutions guidelines. The real difference is those income limits and purchase price limits are set by HUD and the IRS. So for our Start Smart borrowers, we are looking at borrowers and non-purchasing spouses, if applicable, to be either first-time homebuyers or military veterans or spouses of veterans, or purchasing a primary residence in a targeted county. The sales price limit is $425,000. This is an income-based program, and for the income, we're looking at those note holders and non-purchasing spouses. And this will all vary by county and household size. We do have the same minimum credit score requirement of 640 or higher. We have the same maximum DTI limit of 45% or below. We still have that AUS finding requirement of it has to be approved, eligible, accept, no manual underwriting, and risk cannot be referred. Start Smart has a rule that the borrowers must occupy the property within 60 days of closing. And if there is a home business, that cannot exceed 15% of the residents. So who counts as a first-time home buyer? Well, it's somebody that hasn't owned a primary residence within the last 3 years. This is exempt in targeted counties. Targeted counties are an area of chronic economic distress, and that's designated by the IRS. So if you have a borrower in a targeted county, the first-time home buyer requirement actually does not exist. But there are other exceptions to the first-time home buyer rule. So somebody who has owned a manufactured home in the last 3 years, but it was not on a permanent foundation, that counts as a first-time home buyer. Someone who owns rental property and they have not lived there or used that address as their primary residence in the last 3 years, they will also qualify as a first-time home buyer. Someone who's separated or divorced and has not lived in that home for the last 3 years, they do count as a first-time home buyer. And veterans have a possible one-time exemption with a certificate of eligibility or a form DD-214 to not have to qualify within that first-time home buyer space. Now, if they have not owned a property in the last 3 years, obviously we're not going to be asking for that. But this is something that is a huge thing. So if they had a primary residence and they've moved here now to be in a new state, with that certificate of eligibility and the DD-214, we can allow that exemption for them. So for your compliance review, you're looking for first-time home buyers, and that has to apply to note holders and their spouses. We're looking at credit reports for non-targeted counties. We're looking at last year's signed tax returns or tax transcripts for non-targeted counties. And we're going to be reviewing the income for borrowers and their non-purchasing spouses. So you guys, when it comes to income, are going to be looking at that borrower, that non-purchasing spouse, if applicable, for all their income before any kind of deductions. And then you're going to take that income and you're actually going to project it out by 12 months. So what income are we looking for? Well, we're looking for 2 consecutive pay stubs within the last 30 days. Remember, though, when we're looking at pay stubs, we're going off that pay period ending date, not the pay date. We need a VOE that's within the last 30 days. If your borrower is self-employed, we need 2 years tax returns and a current year-to-date P&L that is self-prepared signed by the borrower. Remember, though, for Start Smart, with these self-employments that cannot take up more than 15% of the residence. When we're looking at the spouse's income, we're looking at the same things that we are for the note holders. But if they are separated, we need a legal separation agreement. But reminder that they must sign that mortgage still. So if they're separated and the spouse cannot be found, they still have to sign the mortgage. So there still has to be that signature. We're looking at child support documentation. So court order, custody agreement, or if it's a case in Arkansas, we can go with that child support enforcement. Looking at alimony documentation. When you're looking at awards letters, so Social Security, unemployment, workman's comp, any of those kind of things. And then we're also going to be looking at that gross rental income, deferred income, anything else. You guys are going to want to get everything for us, because if we find it and we have to ask for it, that's going to take another day of review for us. So this is just a little quick cutout of the income matrix. Don't worry, this will be emailed out in an announcement. It should also be on Facebook and our website. But this tells you whether or not the county is targeted or not. And then it gives you the household sizes and the income limit for those. We feel that it's kind of important for you guys to know exactly which counties are targeted. So I do recommend taking a screenshot of this page. And this is just so you're fully aware of which ones are targeted, so you're not looking at that first-time home buyer qualification.
So yeah, there are 30 targeted counties. Almost 50% of the counties in Arkansas are targeted. So take a close look at that. It'll be a helpful list to have if you're working on the Start Smart program.
So for Start Smart, what are eligible properties? So we have single-family detached, townhomes, condos, modular homes. We have duplexes. But the duplexes, they must be purchasing both sides of that duplex. And this is under FHA financing only. The rules for Start Smart say that the borrower must occupy one side of the duplex, and the property itself has to be at least 5 years old. For targeted counties, however, they still have to occupy that one side of a duplex, but they can be a new construction. For manufactured homes, just follow that FHA and Service Solutions guidelines. And for Start Smart, the homes cannot be on more than 5 acres of land. So let's go through the loan process with all of our programs, just so we can kind of walk through how each are going to work before I go into what documents we're requiring for the Start Smart program. So for Start Smart, it does have a pre-closing compliance review, and we have to have that package uploaded to us within 5 days of reservation date. We understand that's fast, but if this is a new construction, you guys need to wait, because we're going to ask for that appraisal, and it has to be complete. It cannot be subject to, if this is a if there's any kind of issue with getting it to us within 5 days, we have to cancel that. You can re-reserve if there are funds, but please, please, please wait until as close to closing as you can, so that we can get that compliance package within that 5 days of reservation date. With that pre-closing review, we're looking at that checklist and the checklist items. We have a list on there for you guys to just follow and make sure that you have everything uploaded to us. Make sure that you're within those income limits and that you verified them as best as you can, because we are going to be checking that note holder and spouse income. You can download the compliance documents that we are requesting off that checklist from the lender portal. And then once we have reviewed and approved that compliance package, you'll get a conditional commitment, the awards letter, and then you'll be able to access the closing documents from that lender portal. In conditional commitment, the biggest thing here to mention is that that is not a guarantee of purchase. If anything changes at all between compliance, commitment, and from commitment to closing. You must send ADFA that new information for a new conditional commitment to be issued. Closing includes all of our programs. So remember, Start Smart only has the compliance and commitment part. Move Up, Start Smart, and DPA are all within a closing review. So make sure you get those checklists off that lender portal. Make sure that the income is correct. We're doing just a quick little double check that we have everything that we need, but at closing, this should all be a quick review. You guys are responsible to ensure that the borrower meets those program guidelines along with that AUS. And then the DPA closing documents and the awards letter, unless you have a Start Smart loan, that can all be found on that lender portal. And you'll just send that to award.letters@arkansas.gov. So let's go over the Start Smart compliance documents. So we're looking at that pre-closing checklist. Again, reminder, AUS findings that are approved, eligible, accept with a DTI of 45% or less. There is not manual underwriting allowed with this program. We're looking for a typed final loan application. So again, we're looking as close to closing as possible to get us this compliance package. So it should be what you're about to turn in and complete at closing. We're looking for that recent VOE within 30 days. We're looking at 2 pay stubs within the last 30 days, or self-employed income, which is 2 years taxes and a year-to-date P&L. For veterans who need that exemption, we're looking at that COE and DD 214. An appraisal that's showing as is. We need a completed real estate contract. We need borrower signed tax returns for last year or last year's transcripts for non-targeted counties. We had tri-merge credit report for non-targeted counties. And then the exhibits that you'll get off the lender portal, which is exhibit A, B, C, and K. For your closing, we're looking at that post-closing checklist. And that checklist is going to tell you for the Start Smart closing documents, we need a first mortgage closing disclosure signed and dated by borrower at closing. We need a final loan application signed and dated by borrower and lender at closing. We need a first mortgage that's executed at closing with a tax-exempt rider attached. We need a first mortgage note executed at closing. And then everything on the right side of this screen is able to be downloaded from the lender portal. So an exhibit E, F, G, P, and the county income limit page. With Start Smart, there is the possibility of recapture. Recapture is the potential repayment of a portion of the interest savings that the buyer receives from the tax-exempt finance mortgage. And this is only owed if all 3 of the following occur. So the home buyer sells their home prior to the 9th anniversary date and makes a net profit when they sell, and their income exceeds the federal threshold income amount in the year they sell. So how this is paid is with federal tax payment in the filing year of the sale of the residence. And the purpose of this is simply to retrieve the subsidy from owners who receive rapid income increases after they purchase this home and they've sold before that 9 years. If recapture is owed though, ADFA will reimburse your borrower upon the request from them.
Just let them know that they have to let ADFA know that that recapture has been triggered. So, but we do want you to know that we think this is going to be so rare that it may never happen, or it at least very rarely happens. So that is why we are going to reimburse any borrower if recapture is triggered in some way. So there's no worries, but they do have to let us know that it has been triggered, and it is a self-reporting requirement.
And ADFA is relying on you guys to actually inform the borrower of that. Well, we're asking you to do that by forms that we are giving you to download from that lender portal. So prior to closing in that compliance review, we're looking at Exhibit A to be fully executed. And then at closing, we're looking at Exhibit P to be fully executed. If these have changed, either at closing or it's incorrect, you also have to resend that to your borrower, and we will have to have confirmation that they have gotten these documents corrected.
But the rule is that the borrower has to be notified 2 times. So that's why before closing and at closing.
So recap really quick on the Start Smart program. So this is our first time home buyer program that has a below market rate mortgage for those first time home buyers. So borrower has to be a first time home buyer, so no primary residence within the last 3 years, purchasing a primary residence in a targeted county, or be a veteran or spouse of veteran. With that exception, documents uploaded to us. The income itself is restricted by IRS income limits that are set by county and number of household occupants. And then the purchase price limit is $425,000. So really quick, I just want to get into that DPA 10-year second repayable mortgage with the same interest rate as the first. For the DPA program, you can have anywhere between $1,000 and $15,000 as an assistance for your mortgage. That second mortgage, again, is going to be a 10-year mortgage, and the interest rate will match whatever that first mortgage rate is.
That's whether you're using the Move Up program or the Start Smart program, by the way.
For the DPA, we're looking at closing costs, the principal reduction, paid outside of closing items. That's all considered to be covered in our DPA program. And because we understand that things are known to change slightly here and there at the closer you get to closing, we have a little bit of a cushion with that paid outside of closing cost, but it is not to be used all the time. You can find that in our guidelines. For borrower eligibility, you're going to go off of those first mortgage requirements. The only property eligibility is off that first mortgage requirement, and it has to be a primary residence. So for the documents, you're looking at that DPA post-closing checklist. DPA closing disclosure signed and dated by borrower at closing. DPA final loan application signed and dated by borrower and lender at closing. We're looking at DPA mortgage executed at closing, and a DPA note executed at closing with that endorsement filled out to Arkansas Development Finance Authority. That is on page 4 right next to your borrower's signature. So if that's completed, you do not need an allonge. And lastly, we're looking at the insurance buyer showing ADFA as a second mortgagee. So that completes our loan programs that ADFA has to offer for lenders and borrowers of Arkansas. Here's everybody's contact information. You can always reach out to each of us individually, but the best way to access us is lender.questions@arkansas.gov. Someone's always looking at those. So if we just happen to be swamped by loans, Kyle, Derek, Denise will be on that email checking regularly.